something about generics. Okay, now we'll discuss some more things extended about generics. Okay, now let me have a method. Method test which has before that I told that we need to discuss about implementation of generics with maps. Okay, how to implement generics with maps means just map a list as well as a set has only one value, only one element, but a map has an entry which internally contains two values. One is a key, another is a value. So even in the generic syntax also map contains a key, okay, and a value. Generic syntax of map will be like this. Just the generic syntax of a map contains two entities. One is a key, another is a value. So this is how generics can be applied for a map. Now, just if you put some elements with a key as 10, value as 200, value as something, hello, will it accept? Will it accept that or will it give a compile time error? Definitely compile time error, just because the key should be a string and value can be any object. Okay, so just let me try to compile this. So just giving a compile time error that put which takes a string and object in map cannot apply to intent string. Okay, so that we cannot give a object which is other than string. Here the generic syntax is that the map key should be a string, but here we are inputting an integer which will lead to a compile time error. So we are making the map as type at the time of compilation itself. And this is how we can implement generics for a map. Now, will it be compiled? Here the key is expected to be a string and value is expected to be integer, but here in the actual entry that we are giving, key is integer and value is a string, which is reverse. But this is not acceptable. It should be in the same order. Okay, the generic values should be in the same order. The key should be string and the value should be integer. Now, will it accept that? No. The generic syntax should contain the exact classes in the exact order. The generic syntax should contain the exact classes in the exact order. Okay. The generic syntaxes on the left hand side as well as the right hand side should contain the same classes in the same order. The generic entities on the left hand side as well as the right hand side should contain the same classes in the same order. On the left hand side as well as the right hand side, it should contain the same classes in the same order. Otherwise, it will be a compile time error. This will definitely lead to a compile time error. Just because on the left hand side it is string integer, on the right hand side it is integer and string, which will lead to a compile time error. Okay? So it should be in the same order. No? Error? Definitely be error, just because first is a string and second is integer value, but it is enclosed in double quotes. Anything enclosed in double quotes will be considered as a string. So this will be a compile time error. Okay? So this is how the generics can be applied for map. Understood? Now let's have, now even for comparator also we can implement generics. Just we can do is person. Okay? Now person. Okay? Now the argument is not of type object. The compare method argument is not of type object. The compare method argument is of type person. Okay? Now do we need to perform the typecasting? Do we need to perform the typecasting? No, directly what we can do is so this is how generics can be implemented even for comparator as well as comparable. So directly the comparator, in the comparator itself I am specifying that this comparator should compare only person objects, and I am returning the comparator which is of type person, and here in the compare method the arguments will be of type person, not the object. So no need of typecasting, directly compare the elements. Understood? And even for comparable also, let me go for address which implements comparable. Of address. Now let me override the method compare to. Now, either in comparator or comparable, are we doing any typecasting? If we use generics, are we doing any typecasting? No, directly we can compare the elements. Just because we are specifying that we are giving only address. We are specifying that we are giving only address. So the compare to method argument is of type address now, not the object. In the same way, just comparator also. Just try to compare this with this. Here we are going for comparator with person, and we are creating a new comparator with person. So the compare method arguments are now persons, not objects. So we need to typecast directly. We can go for the specific elements. Directly we can go for specific elements. Okay, and in the same way for comparable also, just no need to go for typecasting. Directly we can compare the elements. Okay, this is how we can use generics for comparator and comparable. Okay, without typecasting. No need of typecasting for comparison. Directly the elements will be of type generics. The argument type will be of type generics. And as I told yesterday, this feature, the generics in collections, is a feature that is present only from JDK 1.5. In 1.4 version, this generics in collections was not there. It is an enhancement in JDK 1.5 version. It is one of the enhancements in JDK 1.5. Understood how we can use collections or how we can use generics for comparator? Did I tell how we can use generics for iterator? Yes or no? Yesterday I told, right? Yesterday I told how to use generics for iterator. We have seen how to use generics for list set and map, how to use generics for iterator as list iterator, and how to use generics for comparator and comparable. Now we will see how we can use generics to pass value to a method. Now let's consider like we have a method test. Which takes a set of objects. Now I'm just printing the set dot size in the test method. Now let me comment this just because already we have discussed how to implement generics in case of iterator. Now let me call the test method by passing the name is list, but actually it is not a list. Let me change to a set. Now it is an address set. Now what's the output? What's the output? Why did you compile the error? Test is a non-static method, so it cannot be used in static method main directly. Test is a non-static method, so it cannot be directly used from a static method which is main. So let me make it static. Now what happened?
So that contains address object. That contains address object. But sir, when we are calling that method,
now can a set with object refer to a set with address? Can a set with object refer to a set with address? Yes?
that address class is the class to that object.
That's what I told yesterday. Is that I told yesterday? Was that I told yesterday? Is it possible? Is it possible? No. If it is not possible, how it will be possible? How address set can be assigned to this set? Understood? So this will not be possible just because address set is a set of addresses and here the argument type is a set of objects. Set of addresses cannot be assigned to set of objects. But to a set of objects I can add an address object. That is completely different. Okay? Assigning, this will be a compile time error. Definitely. Just because I am assigning a set of addresses to set of object, which is a compile time error. But if we have a set of objects on the both sides, now will it give a compile time error? If I add address objects, the inheritance relationships will be considered while adding an element to a collection. But inheritance relationships will not be considered while assigning a generic collection to another generic collection. That I told yesterday. So let me go to the previous example. Now what happens here? On the left hand side is the address set, which is a set of addresses. Can I assign a set of addresses to a set of object? No. To the set of object I can add a new address object. That's possible. But here I cannot assign one generic collection to another generic collection, which is mismatching. If it is mismatching, then I cannot assign one generic collection to another generic collection, even though the generic entities are having inheritance relationship. If you consider here, this address and object are having inheritance relationship, but that inheritance relationship is not considered while assigning one collection to another collection. While adding one object to a collection, then inheritance relationships are considered. But while assigning one collection to another collection, the inheritance relationships are not considered in generics. Understood? So this will give a compile time error. Okay? Let me not consider about this map. Let me not concentrate about this map now. So this is a compile time error just because test which takes set of objects cannot be used to call this set of addresses. Okay? Now will it be compiled? Can I assign address set to set? Can I assign address set to set in this case? Yes or no? Address set is a set of objects and this is also a set of objects. Now will it be compiled or not? No. Just because on the right hand side it is a set of addresses, on the left hand side it is a set of objects. Either it might be assignment or calling a method or constructor. Everywhere the generics will be verified. Okay? So this will be a compile time error. Okay? And so we should give a specific value. Okay? We should give a specific value. Now let's consider that we have Now, what could be the values printed? Four? Four? Four. Any other answer? Hmm? Three? There are two systems under intelligence. Both three or huh? Upper one. The main method, what is the size? Before that, we are executing test, right? In the test, we are adding one object. What will be the values? Just analyze the flow. First, we are calling test method. At the time of calling the test method, the set contains size as 3. In the test method, we are adding one object. Then we are printing the size in the test method. After coming back, what we are doing is we are printing the size of the address set. Then what will be the values? What will be the size printed in the test method? What is the size that is printed in the test method? 4? And what is the size that is printed in the main method? 3 or 4? 3 or 4? Just please raise your hands. Those who tell that the address set size in the main method is 3. Four? That means most of them have no answer. B on the other side. The rest or no? Now, we try to compile this. It will be compiled successful. Go to the classes. Execute application. What is the size? What is the size it is printed? 4. Why it is printing 4? Just because we are passing the same object to the set. Here what we are doing? We are creating a set which has 3 elements, 1, 2, 3, and we are passing the same set to the method. In that method what we are doing? Okay? Set is referring the same. And to the set we are adding the 4th element. Now, even address set also referring to the same set. What will be the size? 4 and 4. Understood? So, that's how it will be. And this same generic syntax can be used even for constructors and even for methods also. Here we are using generic syntax for a method. The same generic syntax can be applied even for constructors also. Understood? And next thing is Let's have a person class. Already is there a person class? Now let's have employee which extends to person, and let's have a class permanent employee which extends to employee. Now we have three classes: person, employee, and permanent employee. Okay, we have person, employee, and permanent employee. Okay, and now even a generics for a method, okay, even generics for a method can contain a question mark. A generics for a method can contain a question mark. What is this question mark? What is its importance? Let's see. But let me have a set of address objects, where to the set of address objects I am adding three addresses. Okay, and I am calling test of address set. Okay, and let me have a set of person objects, where I am adding three person objects. Okay, and let me add three person objects. Like this, we have three person objects in one set and three address objects in another set. Now what I am doing is, in a method I am putting a question mark. If I put a question mark, then that generic collection is said to be a wildcard collection. This is said to be a wildcard generic collection. Just question mark is a wildcard character. The question mark is a wildcard character, and that collection is said to be a wildcard generic collection. And the question mark is said to be a wildcard character. This question mark is said to be a wildcard character. Okay. Now let me have the set, and this question mark can take any value, either a set of persons, a set of addresses, or a set of objects, or a set of employees, or a set of permanent employees, or anything. The wildcard character can take any collection of that type. That means this method can take any collection as any generic collection or any generic set as an input. So it can take set of addresses, set of persons, set of objects, set of employees, set of permanent employees. It can take any set with a generic collection, any set with a generic class. Now what could be the values printed? What could be the values printed? What will be the values printed? 3. 3 and 3. We are calling the test method twice. One with address set and the second time with person set. But both the person set as well as address set has 3 as the size. So let me go to SRC. Compile the application. So the person cannot have a constructor just because of constructor chaining. So let me have a constructor just knows inside the person class just to satisfy the constructor chaining. Okay. So it was compiled. Go to the classes, execute application. So it's printing 3 and 3. But can I achieve the same thing? Can I achieve the same thing using this? Can I achieve the same thing using this? Yes or no? Why? Just because the collection in the argument is specific. It's not generic. It's specific that it can accept only a set of object class objects. But if it is a wildcard, it's not specific, it is generic. It can accept a set of any generic collection, a set of any generic class, or a set of any generic entities, set of persons, or set of addresses, or set of object class objects, or set of strings, set of integers. It can accept anything. Some of the interviewers will ask me this. Even some of the interviewers will ask like, what happens? We'll tell that the size will be printed as 3 and 3. Now, even in this scenario, the size will be printed as 3 and 3. Then what is the difference? If I am the interviewer and if I ask the same question, what do you tell? First, what I will do is, I will write this example on the paper and I will ask, what is the output? Then what do you tell? 3 and 3. Then the next thing what I will ask is, even if I put it as object, then also the output is 3 and 3. Then what is the difference? If this is the question asked by me, then what do you tell? You should tell that your assumption is incorrect. This will not give 3 and 3. This will give a compile time error. Just because a set of objects can take only a set of object class objects, but not a set of addresses or set of persons. But this set of objects is different from a set with wildcard. Wildcard can take anything, but object can take only a set of object class objects. Understand? That's how it will make the difference. And then, what are the values printed? Then, what is the value? or will we give a compile time error, or if it doesn't give a compile time error, is it a runtime exception, or even if it doesn't give a runtime exception, what is the output? What's the output? For an runtime exception. Is there any other answer? Any other answer? This will definitely give a compile time error. Just because if there is a generic collection with wildcard, we should not add any elements to that generic collection with wildcards. Just because the data type of that generic collection will be determined only at the runtime. The data type of that generic collection, whether it should point to a set of addresses or set of persons or set of something else, will be determined only at the runtime. But at the time of compilation itself, if we give address, it cannot assure that it can accept addresses. It cannot assure that it will accept only addresses. So, for that reason, if there is a generics with wildcards, we should not add any elements to that generic collection. If there is a generic with wildcards, then we should not add any elements to that generic collection. If there is a generic with wildcards, then we should not add any elements to that collection. Just because the data type of that collection will be known only at the runtime. At the time of compilation, the compiler is not sure what collection it is. So, it will give a compile time error. Okay? So, it is giving a compile time error. We should not add any elements if we have a generic collection with wildcards. See, if there is a generic collection with wildcards, it is a wildcard entry. What is the wildcard entry? Without doing anything, at the last, it will decide. At the last, it will decide which one is supposed to be the data type of the collection. At last, at the runtime, it will decide what is the data type of the collection. But the compiler doesn't know what is the data type of the collection. Without knowing exactly what is the data type of the collection, if you add some elements, what happens? The compiler should not allow. Just because at the runtime, the generics may be like that, it is a set of persons. If you add an address to a set of persons, what happens?
If there is no person, we have not any persons there.
But we don't know, right? We don't know at the time of designing test method. We don't know from what places or by using which collections we call test method. See, we have designed a test method, and can you assure that this test method should be used, or can you restrict that test method should be used only at these places? We are not sure, and we cannot restrict that. We are developing some code. That code can be used by any number of places at any number of times. But at that places, we may pass person or address or university or a class. We can do anything. But if we give a provision to add some elements to a wildcard collection, definitely at the runtime it will give exceptions. To avoid that kind of exception scenarios at the runtime, they have made a rule that for wildcard collections we should not add elements. Okay? And even we can have wildcards which are bounded.
So in that case, then it can never decide what is the data type person in that case, if there is address in person, so and we are passing wildcard, so we can never decide what is data type.
Yeah, at the time of compilation we can never decide, but at the runtime, while calling the test method, we pass some generic class, right? Based on the generic class, the data type of this wildcard will be changing.
So what will be the data type?
That depends. That depends upon calling. That depends upon how we are calling the test method.
That means when we are using that wildcard, it is only for accessing. It is not for manipulation.
It is not for
Manipulation or
we can read the data, but we cannot add the elements in that method. Okay? Just we can read the data, but we cannot add the elements with wildcards.
So when we are calling their address set, its data type is
At the runtime, this wildcard will be replaced by address if you are calling with set of address. If you are calling with set of persons, at that time, again it will be replaced with set of persons. Okay? Now, we can have wildcards with specific boundaries. These are called as bounded wildcards. Wildcards with specific boundaries are called as bounded wildcards. Wildcards with specific boundaries are called as bounded wildcards. So we are setting some boundaries to the wildcard that this set can accept any entity which is subclass to person or subclass to person. If we have a bounded wildcard, then that entity as well as subclass to that entity. That means we can add any set which contains person or any subclass to person. Now in this case, will it be compiled? In this case, will it be compiled? Is address is subclass to person? Is address is subclass to person? Yes or no? No, address is not a subclass to person. In that case, will it be compiled or not? If address is not a subclass to person, will it be compiled or not? If address is not a subclass to person, then will it be compiled or not? Address is not a subclass to person. In that case, will it be compiled or not? It will compile. No? Any other answer? One person is telling that it will be compiled. Any other answer?
It's right.
How many times you are calling the test method? 2 times. What's the first thing? What is the first statement? At which line? 31st line. At 31st line, what we are sending? Address it. What is the data type of address set? What is the data type of address set? Set of addresses. Now, can we call the test method by sending a set of addresses? Can we call the test method by sending a set of addresses? Can we call the test method by sending a set of addresses? Yes or no? No. Just because now wildcard is not generic. Now the wildcard is bounded. Wildcard is bounded so that it can accept a set of generic values that extending with person. Now is the address extending with person? No. For that reason it will be a compile time error. Just because a set of it can accept a set of generic entities that are extending to person. But set of address, the first one is set of address. Is address extending to person? No. That's why it will be a compile time error. That is the concept of bounded wildcards. It is telling that, okay, a set which something extends to person cannot be applied to set of address. Just because address is not a subclass to person. A person or something extends to person is valid. A person or something extends to person is valid. But a set of addresses is not valid in this case. Just because address is not a subclass to person. But this test method can accept only within some boundaries. What's the boundary? It should be a subclass to person. The generic entity should be a subclass to person. So this is called as a bounded wildcard. Understood? This wildcard has some boundaries. So let me comment this for some time. Now will it be accepted or not? Will it be accepted or not? If it is accepted, then it will be compiled. If it is not accepted, then it will not be compiled. Will it compile or will it be a compile time error? Will it compile successful or will it give a compile time error? Okay? Is compile successful? Is it compiling successful? No, just because any bounded wildcard, any wildcard, if you use wildcard, whether it is bounded or not, if you use a wildcard, then we cannot add any elements to that collection. Whether it is bounded or not, if you use a wildcard, then we cannot add any elements to that collection. Whether the wildcard is bounded or wildcard is not bounded, we cannot add any elements to that collection. Okay. Now,
Actually, there is a problem that if you use the some subclass as the user of subclass, then there won't be the problem. If you use the actually not the problem, sir. If you use the any subclass, some set that some subclass of a person, there will be the
but we don't know, right? But we don't know at the time of compilation whether we are inputting a set of persons or a set of addresses.
yeah.
We don't know, right? So, we cannot decide that. Since it cannot be decided, it will be a compile time error. Okay? And this is how the bounded wildcards will be. And let me have now what is the size printed? Let me give even in the hash set, let me give the values. Now what is the size printed? Are there any elements in the set, person set? Are there any elements in the person set? No. Now, what is the size printed? Speak out. Null pointer? Null pointer exception? Why do you think it is a null pointer exception? If there is no elements in the set, execution of size method will it give a null pointer exception? The size will be 0, right? When null pointer exception will occur? When we are using a reference to access any attribute or a method and that reference is pointing to null, then is the value of set null? No. The set is pointing to some object. The number of elements present in the object is 0. That doesn't mean that the object is null. Understood? It will not give a null pointer exception. The size is 0, that's it. The size is 0 or the collection is empty means that doesn't mean that the collection object is null. The collection object will be there, the container will be there, but the number of elements present in that container is 0. It will not give a null pointer exception. This one is the output. This will give a compile time error just because the wildcards should be used only as method arguments. The wildcards should be used only as arguments. The wildcards should be used only as arguments. Arguments of a method or arguments of a constructor. Wildcards should be used only as arguments, either for a method or a constructor. The scope of wildcards is restricted only to arguments. The scope of wildcards is restricted to arguments. So, wildcards should be used only as arguments or a collection with wildcards. A collection with wildcards should be used only as arguments. But are we using here as arguments? It's not an argument. Here we are declaring the data type and we are getting the object, which is not a valid case. So this will give a compile time error just because the collection with wildcards should be used only as arguments. Okay? Collections with wildcards should be used only as arguments of method or arguments of constructor. It should not be used inside the executable blocks. The collections with wildcards should not be used inside the executable blocks. They can be used only as arguments of method or a constructor. Understood? Okay, this will complete the what we call wildcards. And last thing in generics is generic types. Generic types. Just we can declare a generic types for a method or a constructor. How we can do that? Let's consider that I'm declaring T as a generic type. Okay, this is how we can declare a generic type. Now T is a generic type. I have an array. Okay, I have an array and I have a list. My intention is to pass all the elements from the array to list. My intention is to pass all the elements from array to list. But can I achieve this using wildcards? Can I achieve this using wildcards? Yes or no? I want to pass all the elements from the array to list. Can I achieve this using wildcards? No, just because if we use wildcards, we cannot add any elements to the collection. So this requirement cannot be achieved using wildcards, just because once if we use wildcards, we cannot add any elements to that collection. So for this kind of requirements, we use generic types. Now what we do is understood what we have done? We are declaring a T as generic types and we are taking a T array and a list with generic types. A list with custom generic type. We are taking a list with custom generic type. And that custom generic type we are declaring before the return type of the method. Okay? And now let me add have No. The address set, let me add the elements. Address array of 0, the first element, second 0th index, first index and the second index of the address. Now I have an array of address objects. Now in the same way, let me add an array of person objects. Let me add some person objects to the array. నేను క్లాస్లో ఉన్న 10 నిమిషాల తర్వాత చేస్తాను. Understood what we have done? Now first what we are doing is, first we are creating an address array with size of 3, okay, and then we are adding 3 elements to the 0th index. We are adding one address object, first index we are adding address object, second index also I am adding address object. So now in this address array there are 3 elements. The same way, what I am doing is I am creating a person array with 3 person objects. Okay, now I am adding 3 person objects to the person array. Okay, and then I am creating an address list and person list. By default they will be empty, and what I am doing is I am calling test method by sending the address array, address object, person array and person object. That means for these 2 entities we are performing similar kind of operation. Understood? For these 2 entities, for address list, address array, person list, person array, we are performing similar kind of operation. If it is a similar kind of operation, why do we have 2 different methods just because the class is changing? We can use generics in the best way to avoid 2 different methods, and we can use the generic types. If the operation is similar but just the entities are changing, here the operation is similar. What we are doing? We are iterating the array and we are putting the elements from the array to the collection. We are putting the elements from the array to the list. That operation will be same if we take list of persons or list of addresses or list of employees or list of anything. So, since the operation, the logic is the same, why to duplicate that logic for list of persons or list of addresses and list of employees and list of permanent employees? It's not required. So the same logic can be used if we use generic types. The logic is same, but just the entities are changing. In that case, okay, we use generic types. Understood? Now, let me try to compile this application. Just compile. Okay. Now go to the classes. Execute application. So, size is 3. The size is 3 in both the cases, just because we are adding 3 persons, 3 address objects, as well as 3 person objects.
3% of data added physical location, first location. 0 index.
3?
0 index normally.
Sorry. Now it will be 3. In previous case, why it was giving even size as 3 means the values will be null by default. See, in the first 0th index the value will be object. The second index value will be null. Third index also value will be null. So let me print, rather than printing the size, let me print the list so that it can be understood better. Now I am printing the list. So for SRC, compile the application, go to the classes. So first 111, 222 and 333. 3 address objects are added and 100, 100, 100. I am adding 3 person objects with the same type. Let me add different types. So I am adding 3 person objects with different values so that it can make the difference. Okay, this is how we can achieve, okay, a simpler logic by using generic types. If the logic is very similar, but just the entities are changing, rather than writing different methods because just the entities are changing, we can write the same method by using the generic types so that the same method can be used for any entities in the collection. Understood the usage of generic types in collections? And even these generic types can be used as arguments. Generic types cannot be used inside the what we call executable blocks. They can be used only as arguments. Generic types. This is a custom generic type. Understood the generic types? Everybody? Now, this will be the end of generics. This will be the end of generics. And as we have discussed, there are still more concepts in 1.5, the enhancements in 1.5. The first thing that we have discussed is auto-boxing and out-boxing. The second one is generics. And the third one is enhanced for loop. Okay, just list out all the JDK 1.5 concepts at one place. First is auto-boxing and out-boxing have a reference in wrapper classes. Generics have a reference in collections. Now, enhanced for loop. Enhanced for loop, or even it is called as for each loop. Or we can call it as for each loop. Now, the enhanced for loop or for each loop can be used either for arrays or collections. Enhanced for loop is called even as for each loop. This enhanced for loop can be used either for arrays or collections. can be used both for arrays and collections. Now, just let's go for a normal for loop syntax. How we do with a normal for loop? Let's consider like I have a array of addresses. To print the array of addresses, what I will do with normal for loop? For go for I equal to 0. Okay, now this is how the normal for loop will be, right? Am I right? Yes. Now let's consider like the size of the array is 100. The size of the array is 100. How the for loop will behave? First is how many times this initialization portion will be executed? Let's consider like the size of the array is 100. Now how many times the initialization portion is executed? If the size of the array is 100, how many times this initialization portion is executed? Only once. For the first time only, the initialization portion is executed. First time it will be initialized with 0. I will be initialized with 0. And then it will check. Okay? If 0 is less than address.length. What is the address.length? Let's not bother about the size now this is 3. Let's consider it is 100. Length is 100. Okay? In the first iteration, will it go to address list? In the first iteration, it will not go to address list. So, since it is true, it will come in this. Now it will come to the next iteration. In the second iteration onwards, it will not come to the initialization. Initialization. Directly, from the second iteration onwards, it will go to the first. It will go to the incrementation. Previously I was 0. Now, what is the value of I? Address plus is 1. Is 1 less than 100? Yes. So it will come to 0. Again, it will go for incrementation. Check, condition check. Incrementation, condition check. First one remains. First it will go for initialization, condition check. From the second iteration onwards, incrementation, condition check. Incrementation, verify the condition. Now let's consider like the size of the array is 100. How many times the condition is verified? How many times this middle section is executed? How many times this first section is executed? One time. Only once. How many times this middle section is executed? 100 times. How many times this section is executed? 99 times. Okay? So, 99 times this statement is executed, 100 times this statement is executed. Total 199 statements are executed. But if our intention is to execute all the statements, if our intention is to iterate all the elements of the for loop, or our intention is to iterate all the elements of the array, 199 statement, let's consider like it is 1000. The array size is 1000, what happens? 1000 plus 999. Okay? 999 statements should be executed. Okay? Which may reduce the performance like anything. If the size of the array is very vast. Let's consider like the array size is 10,000. 10,000 plus 9,999. 19,999 statements should be executed. Okay? But if our intention is to execute the whole array, or if our intention is to iterate the whole array, why to check the condition? The condition should be verified. Let's consider like if you want to iterate the first 10 elements of the array, then do we need to check the condition? If our intention is whatever the size of the array might be, we should iterate only the first 10 elements of the array. Then do we need to check the condition? Understood my question? If whatever the size of the array might be, my intention is to just iterate only the first 10 elements of the array, then do I need to check the condition? In that case, definitely I need to check the condition. Just because the size of the array may be 100 or 200 or 10,000 or 10,000. So in that case, what I need to do? I need to check the condition that what my intention is? My intention is to iterate only the first 10 elements. So every time I need to check the condition that address I is less than 10. I is less than 10. I is less than 10. So after iterating 10 elements, what happens? If it comes to the 11th element, I is less than 10. It will become true or false? False. So it will come out true. So only first 10 elements of the array will be iterated. So if you want to iterate the elements with some boundaries, then we need to write the condition. Let's consider like only first 10 elements of the array, irrespective of the size. There are some boundaries. So you want to apply the boundaries, we need to apply the logic. If you want to apply the business logic, we should apply the condition. But irrespective of the size of the array, if you want to execute the whole array, or if you want to iterate the whole array, do we need to check the condition? Do we need to verify the condition if you want to execute the whole array, or if you want to iterate the whole array? No, the condition is not to be verified. If you want to execute array with boundaries, now only some boundaries, only first 10 elements, first 30 elements, last 10 elements, last 30 elements. In that kind of boundaries are there, then we need to write the condition. There are no boundaries, and if we are iterating all the elements of the array, there is no condition. Why to write the condition? To avoid that kind of performance reduction, if we are iterating the whole array or the whole collection, we go for enhanced for loop. Let me go with enhanced for loop, and you can understand the difference. The same thing can be done using enhanced for loop like this. This is the syntax of enhanced for loop. Just a variable, a temporary variable, colon, a list or collection. Then which one is simple? Now are we verifying any condition? Are we taking a integer pointer? Are we incrementing the integer index? No, nothing is there. Just iterate the whole collection. If our intention is to iterate the whole collection, or if our intention is to iterate the whole array, we need not to go with a for loop with index and incrementation condition check. Directly we can go for a enhanced for loop. But this will be available only from JDK version 1.5. Before 1.5, this enhanced for loop is not there. Understood? Now, which one do you think it is better? Using the first for loop or the second for loop? Which one do you think it is better? Using the first for loop or second for loop? Definitely it depends upon the requirement. If our requirement is to iterate a bounded array or a bounded collection, then we go for the first for loop. Without boundaries, if we want to iterate the whole collection or a whole array, then we go for enhanced for loop. Let's consider like if we want to iterate only the first 10 elements of the list, then we go for a first for loop. If we want to iterate the whole list, then we go for second for loop. We should use enhanced for loop only in the situation that we are iterating the whole array or the whole collection. If we are iterating a collection with specific boundaries, we should not go for enhanced for loop. We should go for enhanced for loop, or we should prefer enhanced for loop only when we are trying to iterate the whole array or the whole collection. Understood? Now, If the interviewer asks you like, if I have a list of 100 elements, I have a list of 100 elements. Okay. Now, please write an enhanced for loop. Okay. Please write an enhanced for loop which prints the first 30 elements. What do you say? We did not tell that it is not possible. It can be possible, but for that case, I want to use an enhanced for loop. Just because you are setting some boundaries. The list size is 100, but you are setting some boundaries that first 30 elements should be iterated. In that case, I won't go for enhanced for loop. I'll go for a normal for loop. Okay? The interviewer may or will try to confuse like this. In that case, the perfect answer should be, if that is the situation, I won't go for enhanced for loop, I'll go for a normal for loop. Just because I'm not iterating the whole collection, I'm setting some boundaries. To set some boundaries, the best one is go for normal for loop. But there are no boundaries and the whole array or the whole collection is supposed to be iterated. Then we should go for enhanced for loop. Understood? In the same way, I can go for even a collection. Like this. I can use an enhanced for loop both for a collection as well as a array. Enhanced for loop can be used both for a collection as well as an array.
And for the enhanced for loop, and also if someone asks that, write the only enhanced for loop. That time if you write the sum, how do I access?
Yeah, that can be used, but that is not necessary, right? That can be done in a very better way using normal for loop. Again, we should write if condition. That's not necessary, right? This is how we can use enhanced for loop for a collection. For a list or a set or a map, anything we can use enhanced for loop. Now, using enhanced for loop, could we able to iterate the elements of a collection? Yes. But for that purpose, did we have anything? To iterate the elements of a collection, did we have any entity? To iterate the elements of a collection, did we have any entity? Yes, what is that? Iterator. Iterator was there to iterate the elements of a collection. Now, which one you prefer? Iterator or a enhanced for loop?
And then we have to manipulate something, or the size is there.
The size is?
Size is not a total size.
But can we restrict the size using iterator? Like, can we iterate only the first 5 elements using iterator? Can we restrict the size using iterator? Can we restrict that? Iterate only the first 5 elements? No, right? Okay. Then in that case the answer should be, if you want to manipulate the collection while iteration, then we should go for a iterator. Otherwise, if the intention is just to iterate the collection, then we should go for enhanced for loop. While iterating, how can we manipulate the collection? Let's consider like we are using iterator. If we are using iterator, While iteration, how we can manipulate the collection? If we are using a iterator to iterate the collection, okay, how we can manipulate the collection using iterator? But I'm asking how we can manipulate. I'm not asking how to iterate. I'm asking how to manipulate, how we can manipulate the collection while iterating. If I'm using iterator, can you add? Can you add elements if you are using iterator? What are the methods present in iterator? Has next, remove. That means whenever we have iterated the element, if we want to remove the element from the collection, can we do this in enhanced for loop? No, that cannot be done using enhanced for loop. For that purpose, we should use for iterator. That means if we are trying to manipulate the collection while iteration, we want to manipulate the collection while iteration, then we should go for iterator or list iterator. If our task is just to iterate the collection, then go for enhanced for loop. Understood? If you use iterator, what happens? If you use a iterator, okay, we can iterate the elements as well as at the same time, after iteration, we can remove the elements. That means we can manipulate the collection. If we use a list iterator, we can iterate the elements. After iteration, we can add or even we can remove the elements from the iterator, which in turn will remove the elements from the collection. So, that kind of manipulation can be done if you use iterator. But that kind of manipulation cannot be done if you use enhanced for loop. But if our purpose is just to iterate the elements, not manipulation, which one is better? Enhanced for loop. Why? Why? Because the iterator pointer is not necessary. Has next and next methods are not necessary. Again checking, again and again verifying whether the iterator pointer is there at which position, or are there any elements after the iterator pointer. This condition has next and next. This condition need not to be verified. Directly we can iterate the elements. Understood? If the purpose is just to iterate the collection, then the best thing is go for enhanced for loop. But if you want to go for some bounded if you want to iterate collection in a bounded manner, that means first 20 elements of a list, first 30 elements of a list, or last 30 elements of a list. That is the case, then go for normal for loop. If you want to manipulate the collection while iteration, then go for iterator. Understood? This is how we need to go for a specific thing. Anything is not the best or nothing is best. Nothing is best and nothing is best. Depends upon the requirement. Okay? Depends upon the requirement, we use either iterator or normal for loop or enhanced for loop. And this enhanced for loop is also an enhancement in JDK 1.9. Understood? Let's find out for the day. Actually, tomorrow there is a hospital checkup for my mother.